this.
Right. Hey guys, welcome. Melissa and Melissa back here again. And I love, we were just chatting and I love what she just said. We're getting real and raw, and that's really the thing. So we're going to dig into a mental health series for the next few weeks that we are doing these because it's a topic near and dear to my heart. I know it is for Melissa too, but also, you know, as a licensed mental health counselor, we are experiencing a mental health crisis. And I think the last couple of years have highlighted it because of things going on, but it certainly has been here for much longer than that. And so, you know, there's a massive connection between gut health and mental health, and the gut-brain connection is so powerful, and you can absolutely make an impact. And I think what we hope to do is to give people some hope around how you can help yourself feel better, you know, and if you're really willing to do the heavy lifting, you can make some massive changes. I know Melissa has, I know I have. I guess to give backstory, I had some really debilitating anxiety. I was sharing with Melissa, I would say really my whole life, honestly, up until probably like 32. And I mean, OCD, panic attacks, you know, gosh, massive depression all through my 20s, you know, and these are things that I definitely, people weren't aware of. And I think they're things that I for sure masked. But when I really started a journey of starting to take better care of my health, start to heal things, get off all these medications, and try to really heal, you know, I've learned so much. And now I can honestly say it's like, I feel so different in my brain and my body. And so, I'm really like excited for us to just kind of, I know it's going to be tip of the iceberg, but that's where we got to start. And then we'll kind of keep digging in. So
I love that. I love that. And thanks for kind of pulling back the curtain on what your path has been. Because like when I was really sick with multiple sclerosis, I had debilitating anxiety as well. I mean, to the place where felt like I couldn't breathe, and my body would just shake, and there was no steadiness about what was happening in my brain and also in my body. But I didn't know at the time that was so closely intertwined, that it was, you know, as my body healed and I worked on what was happening up here, that would come around too, to the place where you know, anxiety is not a thing for me anymore.
I remember, Melissa, it was like the probably peak of my anxiety. I had such a bad panic attack. I thought I was having a stroke. I'd actually gone for a massage. I was on the table, and it was during the time I was building out my current dance studio space. And it was just, you know, I had a lot of control issues at the time. You know, even my mom will tell you, really bad OCD all my life. And you know, people just kind of were like letting it go. But I was like there, and she was asking me, and I just remember everything went numb, and I could not move my hands or my feet. And even she thought I was having a stroke. So she wrapped me up in the blanket and like sat me up. And, you know, she was like just trying to talk to me and assess like what was going on. And she was about to call the paramedics, and all of a sudden I was starting to get some movement back in my hands. But it was just a really severe panic attack. And I think that's what folks don't realize too, is the scale of a panic attack, right? And how bad they can become.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Because I had a similar experience, and it took me about 2.5 hours to be able to move again. Just speak. I could see, I could hear, I could move my eyes, but that's it.
Yeah. Scary when it's happening to you, right? And I think, you know, it's interesting. Obviously, I deal with so many clients now, and people will perhaps be asking about medications. And, you know, I think the thing is realizing that sometimes they're a crutch, right? And I think it's looking at how can I make changes within my body, so that way, you know, I'm not relying on these meds, because then it becomes another thing for folks to just be like, well, you know, I'll just take my Xanax, or I'll just take, you know, whatever. And unfortunately, that's not really fixing anything, right? And you're not learning any new tools. And, I'm sure you can speak to the gut health side of that and how that all comes together.
Mhm. Yeah. So interesting that you would mention those, because one of the biggest things that I see coming in, um, when clients come in and they're taking, like, for example, an SSRI, right? So what that does is literally tricks the body into thinking that you have more serotonin in your body than you actually do. And when the problem is there's not enough serotonin production being created in the first place. And so the SSRI kind of masks that for a minute, but then the body stops creating serotonin, or it really, really decreases. And we've just made the problem worse. And then to bring somebody off of that cycle, like especially if they've been had an SSRI for quite some time, that is a rocky road to come off of that. But it has to happen for the body to then be able to increase serotonin production again. So when I look at that for a client, I look at, why is the body not already creating the serotonin, the amount of serotonin that we need? We look at what is in the way, what is not being supported. And it can be anywhere from issues in the gut, it can be bacterial issues, it can be the inability of the body to actually metabolize hormones in the liver. It can be, I see this quite often, a toxicity issue. And there's a wide variety of possibilities there for depending on the person. It can be an inability of the body to either break down and absorb nutrients, like the building block nutrients the body needs to create serotonin, or it can be that the diet is not good enough, like the actual intake isn't good, or even just the simple breakdown of those foods, like they're not being broken down so the body can't absorb them. So there's links in here that have to be addressed. It's an overall picture, but I think the wisdom that we can gain is that our bodies never do anything just for shits and giggles. There's always a reason. And the trick is to go after that and figure that out. And it could be, going from your perspective as well. And I see this too as, maybe there was this horrendous event in their life, be it physical, be it emotional, be it something that just really happened. And their body took a hit, their mind, their emotional space, their safety took a hit. And that has to be addressed right alongside, or at least that's my opinion, is that it has to be addressed right alongside the body part, the actual physiological part.
Yeah, I agree, Melissa. And I think you brought up such a good point around diet, right? Like you were like, I know often, especially if I'm working with teenagers, and I will say to them, like, what are you eating? Are you drinking enough water? And we live in this day and age with so much processed junk, right? And we have really moved away from, I mean, most parents in the household are working at this point. We have two income households, people are working. It's
Mhm.
really turned into what's quick, what's easy. And I know myself, my best friend too, like we are so cautious about our food prep, right? And I really try to share, on my platforms, quick and easy things that people can make that aren't going to consume hours of
Exactly.
prepping. But just as simple as even just roasting a ton of veggies and having those available, right? And
Mhm.
figuring out like what are some easier things to make that are not gonna, take a ton of time, but will have some nutrients in it for you and your family. And I think, it's no coincidence that we see this increase in mental health issues while we're seeing this decrease in people cooking and preparing like we used to, right? And certainly, gosh, all the, fertilizers and things we're dumping in our soils, and just even the actual nutrient
Value.
components of what we're eating, right?
So true. Oh my gosh. I could go all day on that one. I
Yeah,
love that you touched on that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's, so from your perspective, Melissa, like, because I always want us to be able to give people some takeaways. Like if we're starting with the diet piece, right? So say someone's watching this, they've got anxiety, they've got depression. What are some baseline things they can start to do that are gonna start to lead them in a pathway that is gonna help?
Oh, girl, thank you for that question.
Yeah.
And so when we're looking at food, and you already touched on it in the big picture, the basic things that we need to think about are, does this food, whatever you're choosing, have nutrition in it? Is it fully nutritious, or is it empty? So for example, a carrot, I mean, it's real, it's got everything you need from a carrot. But say you do something like veggie straws or something, it's some of the nutrients are still there, but it's way more empty, if you want to think about it that way, than an actual carrot would be. So thinking about what kind of nutritional value your food has. But the second thing, and I think this is what you were really trying to ask me, is what are the biggest foods that I would kind of migrate away from? And the worst combo I see is gluten and sugar. Gluten on its own can cause anxiety. If the body has an inflammatory response, or if there is a leaky gut issue there, or if we have distinct heavy metal toxicity, that's a clue for me. Sugar on its own can be an exciter in the brain. I don't know how to say that. There's a better word for that, but it really makes the synapses in the brain kind of go crazy. Like when I work with kiddos that have ADHD or ADD or something like that, and even older folks, that's exactly where I go, because a lot of it can be sugar induced. But when you put those two things together, it's a kind of a deadly combo.
So when you look at how many kids are snacking on goldfish crackers, right?
Or the gummies, the gummies. And I, it's a thing. And I could go down this whole rabbit hole about why, but just know if you're wanting to make gentle changes that have a deep impact, that's where I would go first, is gluten and sugar. Not just one or the other. I would do both of them and learn how to do them very well. Learn how to stay away from gluten very well. Sugar very well, because those two together, when you're talking about anxiety and emotional upset and, especially the hormone piece, I could go into that too, but that drives an imbalance in the body that is just, and we get to choose what we eat, right? It's not that somebody's forcing us to have this certain type of food. We get to choose, and let's exercise that ability to choose, because if you could just change those two things, that could make a big difference in how you feel.
When I think, and this is going to probably win me least popular of the day, but we've got people
right
self-medicating with alcohol, right? And alcohol
goodness.
turns right to sugar. So, and I'm sure you can obviously add some more to that, but I think, you see people in this cycle of, I'm going to self-medicate. I drink because it makes me feel better. But then, and if it's particularly something like beer that's full of gluten and sugar, right? Yeah. I mean, I think that's where, it's being aware of your choices. And I think a good question is always like, is this adding health? Or is it taking it away, right? Like, yeah.
And sometimes if you can just ask yourself that question and then honor your own answer.
Yeah. Yes, that's the piece, right? Knowing the answer. Well, and I think it's fascinating. I had read, this was forever ago, about how sugar is 10,000 more times addictive than cocaine. And I was like, whoa. And I remember, in undergrad when we were learning about your nucleus accumbens, your addiction center, right? And I was like, man, like there's so many patterns that go into developing habits and then transversely breaking them, right? And I think that's the part that people definitely get nervous about, because it's not a quick fix, right? But if people really want to feel better and live better, because the goal is longevity, right?
Exactly. And I think, and you probably do this too, and I'm getting a lot of, there's something drove in next to my office. Let me switch here. Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay. So one of the things that I like to help people do, and I'm sure you do this as well, is to really get clear on what they want. End goal. What do you want to head towards? What do you want to be you? And then really get clarity on why. Because that, when we can really hook into our why, that sometimes can help us in that space of, is this driving me towards health? Is this supporting my intention to be well? And then in the moment to honor your decision or honor your knowledge. And then if you need another help or another, kind of something to drive that, if you have a solid why, like for me, I want to play ball with my grandkids. But if I have multiple sclerosis and my legs and my hands don't work, I'm obviously not going to be able to do that. I'm going to take care of this person. I'm going to take care of this body because I can't play ball very good. They may not even want me to, but I want to be able to. Does that make sense?
Totally. Well, we say it in business all the time, like, what's your why? But I think that's got to be the undercurrent to
Right here.
everything, right? Yeah. Like what is it about? Are you really tired of being sick and tired?
Mm-hmm.
And you had brought up ADHD, Melissa, and I know this is something that, again, I'm probably not going to win any popularity contests today, but I see so many people using that definitely as, again, a crutch, right? Well, I have ADHD. And, I think that, I don't know what people's expectation is, but I'm like, we have turned our attention span into attention spec, right? Like the instant gratification, social media, scrolling, we want what we want, when we want it. And I think it's about too, like, diet impacting the ability for your brain to think clearly and not have that fogginess.
Right. And the wavelengths be connected. Like so many people describe it as, there's just a break. I'm thinking along and there's a break and then it's gone, or there's it's just this constant, I can't settle in on anything. Yeah.
Thoughts on water intake? Because I know, like, it's very funny. At like the age of 14, I decided I'm going to start drinking a lot of water, and quite frankly, at the time was because I was like, I just want to lose weight. But it's been a habit that's been built in over the years, and I intake quite a bit of water throughout the day. But I know there's like ways you can look up ratio, like how much you're drinking. But what do you think, again? And I know if people want to get real specific, you can certainly do that work, but a good baseline, because I know for me, like, I just really tried to cut out anything other than water, kombucha, herbal tea.
Yeah.
Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I love that question. So my general rule of thumb is to do between 48 to 60 ounces for most people. And depending on, if there's more body mass, we need to go higher, but that's kind of a rule of thumb. And if you are really looking to move, like if you're detoxing, or if you're really working on something, say, for example, you're working on heavy metals, or you're really working on flushing the liver or whatever, we would need to up that intake. But just as a general rule, if you can get 60 ounces, 64, 65 ounces in a day, that's fabulous, because it needs to be every day. But if you are starting with, say, you don't drink any water, or you're lucky to have, a glass or 8 ounces in a day, I would highly recommend not going from just one glass of water clear up to 64 ounces, because you can really deplete your electrolytes in the body, and that can cause its own set of issues. So I like to say, 8 ounces every 2 weeks or every week and a half, just slowly increase that, because your body has to get used to it. Yep. But once you get to that level and you get to 60 ounces, 64 ounces, and that's kind of your regular, if you don't have that in a day, your body's going to be going, hello, you forgot something. But it's a big deal. It's a big deal to have enough water coming in. Yeah.
It's so funny. Like, I know for the folks watching, I'm working with Melissa too on some stuff. And so I work out very intensely, and I did not drink. I drink over a gallon every day, which again did not happen overnight, but in the nature of the workouts I do. But last week I had done so many, and then I hopped in my sauna, and my body was like, okay, we needed way more, way more liquids, and it just resulted in like a dull headache, and I drank some electrolytes, and I
was going to say, at that point you need electrolytes too, not just water.
Yes. Yeah, no. And I always have them during my workout for sure. But Good. It was just, it's an interesting awareness, but it is, I think once you really start paying attention to that, and I don't really, I know for me, I just always have, my cups that I just fill constantly.
Yeah, you guys saw mine too.
Yeah. Because it just prompts you to drink it. And I did read somewhere that like having like a straw, and the bigger the container, the more likely you are to drink more, right? So all these little tricks for folks. But yeah, I think, if you're not taking anything else away from this today, like focusing on whole foods, and increasing water intake can make a huge difference. And whether, I know we started about anxiety, but as I mentioned, the ADHD thing, I think we're seeing so many kids again being diagnosed. But if you really look at dyes in our food and the potential side effects from those, and obviously, again, gluten, sugar, and it's really something for folks to pay attention to, because sugar is one of those things that's so sneaky, because
it's
they add
addictive.
it. And they add it into everything because it makes it, taste good. But I will tell you this, I had this funny moment. This was 2 years ago, and it was Christmas, and my mom had gotten me, I don't do any gluten or dairy, as but that's for, whoever's checking this out. So, and I don't eat any sugar anymore. So I had this dessert, and I literally couldn't keep my eyes open. I just passed out. And I remember when I woke up, I was like, what just happened? And at that point I was like, I can't do any refined sugar at all. And because I was only having it like maybe once a year, my body was like, nope. So, it's, and even for our wedding, I found a bakery that did gluten-free, dairy-free, and they use coconut sugar. Yeah. And there's a lot of these alternatives for sure, right? My brand uses the stevia plant a lot. And so, it doesn't mean you'll never eat anything sweet again, but I think when people don't realize, and your taste buds change so much, right?
Yes.
Man, that makes a huge difference the more you cut these things out, right?
And a banana is just like, wow, that's a lot of sweetness.
Yes, right? Yes, absolutely. No, I think that this is something for folks to understand too, because, that is something that I'll get, I even had a client recently say, well, I don't like the taste of water. I was like, but she was literally drinking no water. So, I had gotten her our fizz sticks that we have through our bond. So that encouraged water intake. And then we have this great herbal tea. So she actually now is drinking probably at least 24 ounces of water a day, which is a huge jump, right? And she's feeling so much better, of course. She's not dehydrated. And then, now we're working on talking about rosacea because, that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole other pathway we could go down, but the skin stuff that comes from gut health, right? So,
That's huge.
yeah. So, I think for people who are wondering, right, how do I start this? I think, paying attention to what you put in your
Mm-hmm.
body, we're inundated with, meditate and read, and all those things are wonderful. But, when I read that 95% of our serotonin is produced in our gut, I almost fell over.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
was
People don't
like,
realize that.
well, and I know we
Mm-hmm.
talked about leaky gut last time, but if you venture to guess that most people have at least probably some
Yeah.
form of leaky gut,
Mm-hmm.
then you've got poor diet, and
Mm-hmm.
then you've got, okay,
Yep.
we're eating a lot of sugar, processed foods, we're not drinking
Mm-hmm.
water. So now I'm not producing serotonin the way I
Mm-hmm.
need to.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's no mystery around how we've ended up in this place of
Yeah.
everyone
Mm-hmm.
having anxiety and some form of depression, right?
That's big. I love the way you put that and just kind of lined it out because that's exactly what happens. So when we're talking about, having anxiety and ADHD and all of that, one of the things that I would love for our people to hear that are listening today is that if you want to go deep and figure out what is causing this for you and turn that around for yourself and be completely, I mean, truly and deeply well, it is so possible. And you don't have to wait 10 years to do it. You can do it now.
Well, I think it's the journey we keep speaking about, right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting as we're talking, I'm thinking about like yourself, me, you know, other
Mm-hmm.
practitioners that I've worked with myself or just know. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, it's funny. One day someone commented on one of my pictures on Instagram. It's like, what does that glow come from? And I was like, well, it's all this internal work, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
realize, and not that, I mean, here's the thing too, the reality is that there's never going to be no discomfort in life. Like that's not a realistic goal, right? But it's
Mm-hmm.
like your body and your brain having a different response to it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you have a moment of discouragement, but you're able to go, okay, I could keep
Yep,
going, right?
exactly.
And I think that's the difference, because I know even
Mm-hmm.
sometimes talking to clients, I'm like, well, we have to set up a realistic goal, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not to be, we're
Yeah,
never going to feel any twinge of anxiety. And I
right.
know, like, I love, I don't know if you've ever read Mel Robbins, but she has this great book,
Mm-hmm.
5 Second Rule. And I love how she frames, excitement and anxiety are really the same emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, when I would be getting to go out on stage and I get like really like nervous, but it was a good nervous.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Right.
I also think we have to get out of this idea of we're never going to be experiencing discomfort. I think we're
Mm-hmm.
doing, especially this younger generation coming up, a real disservice around trying to keep them happy all the time and
Mm-hmm.
keep them comfortable. And I think we have to realize that that's not a realistic
Mm-hmm.
expectation. You can live with
Yeah.
a lot of joy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
feel really good. That
By
does not
choice.
mean there aren't going to be challenging things, but
Mm-hmm.
you still keep choosing to stay in
Mm-hmm.
your joy, right?
Exactly. Oh, I love that. Mm.
Yeah. I
Well
mean,
said, my dear.
thank you. No, I think this is big for folks to understand, because I
Mm-hmm.
know when I really struggled, it was like, man, am I ever going to feel better? And I just kept thinking,
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to feel better. And then, you know, you have this moment, like even this
Mm-hmm.
morning, I was laughing at myself because I got in the car after my workout and I tipped over. I had a little bit of coffee in a cup and that tipped over, and then my water dumped over it. And I just started laughing. But like, 20
Mm-hmm.
years ago, that would put me completely over the edge. And so I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, okay. And I know myself. So I always keep a little towel in my console,
Mm-hmm.
wiped it up. But I just thought, man, like, yeah, like what
Mm-hmm.
a difference. Right. But
Mm-hmm.
those are the moments when you realize all the
Yep.
work you've done. Right. And how it adds up.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for people looking to make some of these changes, and maybe, they've listened to us and they're going, okay, yep, that's me. I want to do something. I want to do it now. Um, would you mind sharing the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Absolutely, yeah. So you guys, I have a great eating program that you can get connected with, and it's very simple to follow. And that can be a great bridge, I think, to work with Melissa. You can follow me on Instagram at Mel Age as well, or on Facebook, I'm Melissa Dearest. And I'd be happy to chat with you to talk about how to get you started. And there's a few
Mhm.
ways to do that. But I think, if you're really looking to change your eating habits, I mean, this program that I share now is what started it for me, really, in terms of like, okay, I need to feel better. And
Mhm.
man, and then it just kept getting like, I kept getting tighter and tighter on the things I was like allowing, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
So now it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't eat that. And,
Right.
you know,
Mhm. Yeah. And if you want to dig into like the physiological side and really understanding what your triggers are and what's happening in the body, and looking at the leaky gut piece, looking at what's happening in your gut as a whole, what's happening with the hormone piece, what could be happening with the toxicity piece, even the digestion of once you get your food dialed in, your body has to be able to break it down and actually use it, absorb it. And then, understanding if anything like that is out of balance for you. Um, my team and I work with people with, all kinds of issues every day. We're really good at putting the puzzle pieces together for you and helping you understand what is happening in your body, and then helping you really turn that around and making choices and, you know, yeah, to be able to actually be well and not just, band-aid things, but actually help your body come back into balance. So the best way to do that, you can find us at sagebrushwellness.com. We're on Facebook, Sagebrush Wellness. We're on Instagram, Sagebrush Wellness. Um, we just started a really in-depth kind of a group program for people who have things like gas, bloating, indigestion, constipation, diarrhea. Those are the main things that we're focusing on for this really in-depth. It's going to be a group program. We just started putting that out for folks. It's hard, fast, it's to the point, and you've got constant help like every 2 or 3 days. So very, very supported, even though we'll be moving pretty fast through this program. But it's exciting. It's exciting to see people be able to take back their lives, quite frankly.
well, I love that. And I think that's so true. Like, I know you and I are zeroing in on some real fine tuning, and people don't realize, yeah, like heavy metal poisoning is so common nowadays. And I know we're going to dig into even more of that next time. And, but
Yeah.
just, what's around us in our environment, what we're being exposed to every day. And yeah, I mean, so many people just think, well, I just get gassy when I eat, or this has happened. They normalize these things. And that's the thing for you guys to understand, is you don't need to, so
That's not normal.
it's not normal. So, between the two of us, we can get you back on track in a multitude of ways. And Melissa can help you fix what's broken. And then I can help you start with some new habits and routines to help you, on your journey. But always looking at it like that, right? This is the next step in my journey. But I'll give the testimony of us only working together for like 2 weeks now, and I'm already feeling better. And I was feeling pretty good, but I was like, all right, let's see what else we can tighten up here, because that's just who I am. Like, I always want that 1% edge. And so, but these are the things, you guys, if you're having those symptoms, then something's not quite right. And for sure, if you're struggling with mental health stuff, absolutely reach out, and we'll be able to help you, because we've been there. I share with all my clients, so that's the reason why I started doing what I do with all that. And B, we want you to feel better too, because you should not just be getting through life. I think that's the biggest thing.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, we're going to keep digging into this series, you guys. Melissa, as always, thank you.
Thank you
for your insight, because I feel like we just bring two pieces together.
Really well. We do. Awesome. Oh, I have so much fun today, my dear.
Thank you. You too. And yeah, we'll definitely be connected and set up our next one for our awesome.
Awesome. Have a good day, everyone.
Take care.